Hi, this is Beth, the founder of Pretty Loaded. Recently, I had the opportunity to talk with Shelby Gallagher, the author of the awesome book, A Great State. You don't want to miss this very emotional interview because we discuss a tragic story, real tips for victims to heal, and why high school and college age students need self-defense. Additionally, we touch on other common news stories these days, like the potential threats that come from rioting, and why you need to have an emergency preparedness plan in place. Here is Shelby Gallagher.
I feel like I had to be nice. This person's being kind of aggressive to me, and I had to be nice, and because you don't want to be rude. And so I kind of froze there. And then when I did get to the point where I need to fight back, it was too late.
First off, you start the book out with something that is very tragic that happened to you in college. Would you be able to talk about this a little bit?
I think it's pretty typical what happens to many women who find themselves assaulted or sexually assaulted in colleges. It's a very friendly environment in college. Everyone's kind of in their loose, carefree times of their lives. Their defenses are down. And in my case, and I think in most women's cases, and you can speak to this, you know the statistics more than I do, women just aren't prepared to use their angry voice, situational awareness, all of those things. And I think it's very typical that way that, and it kind of got edited out a little bit, but when I tell this story of the night that happened, how looking back now, there are things that I could have done so differently to create safety for myself. And I look back and I get angry at myself. But on the other hand, I also feel like I wasn't prepared for that. No one taught me how to deal with this person in front of me. And so, yeah, I think it's very typical.
Did you feel like you absolutely kind of froze and the situation just happened?
I do. And the person had full control over me. So you need to create that way sooner in the situation and be willing to be rude and mean. I don't care if somebody calls me names and calls me, on social media, whatever, and calls me, I don't care. I'm alive,
Right. Well, I mean, it's just fascinating that bad people, psychopaths, they don't want to fight on their hands. And they want somebody, who's just submissive and easy. And interestingly enough, the more submissive you are, the more compliant you are, sometimes the worse they will hurt you. And they've proven that in research. And so you really, truly need to fight back. How did this event change your life?
It is a pivot point in my life. You think over the course of your life, the things that were pivotal moments, things that change the course of your life, when you get married, when you graduate from college, or that event was a pivotal point in my life. There's a before and there's an after to my life. Yeah.
A lot of testimonials that Pretty Loaded receives is, I never thought this would happen to me. I mean, almost every person says that. And so I really think, one of the things that we fight against is just denial. Most people don't think anything bad's going to happen to them. Like, they're never going to get cancer, and they're never going to lose their job. They're never going to get attacked. But I really think it's one of those things you need to think about, because the people who have the mindset to know what to do in those events are the ones that prevail. So I think that's really important. So in the book, you tell about the steps that help you work through the traumatic events. So is there a short version of how you got your life back together after the event happened?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I struggled with how much do I talk about the recovery from that. And I don't talk about it much in the book, because it really is truly almost a whole nother book in and of itself. If you find yourself in that situation where you are victimized, you need to find, and it's hard to anymore because mental health services are so good ones are so hard to find these days, is that sharing your story and not feeling isolated in your story. Tell your story until that person does not hold any more space in your head rent-free. All of those things that you find yourself shying away from, I don't want to deal with that. That's too scary. That reminds me of this. Press forward until that person doesn't occupy your time and your emotional energy and space in your head. And that's very therapeutic-y sound, but it's true. I want to make sure there's no more ghosts in my head from this person.
One of the things that I find is very interesting is that 80% of people who actually take a self-defense course or a safety course have been been victimized. And one of the things with Pretty Loaded that I want to get out there is I want to be more proactive. I don't want things to happen to people, right? And so I'm trying to turn the tables on that a little bit, and start self-defense courses with young girls in high school, because these are the girls who are most vulnerable, and as well as the college age girls. So tell me more about why you wrote your book.
Well, I came at it from a couple different point of views. One was, at the time I wrote it right before the 2016 election, living in Portland and watching this kind of build up to election day that got really frenzied. And you'll see the political side of that in the book, because on election day, riots started to happen in Portland, and it was very scary if you were a resident there and watching this happen. And the whole idea to me was, how do I get my family to safety? This is so interesting that I know myself, I know my past, I know that I come from a kind of a broken state, and here I am in a very capable state, grabbing the bullhorns here, thinking, how am I going to keep everybody here safe? And I can, not only that, but I can do it. I know I'm capable of it, and it's a matter of just decision my way there. So I was just kind of impressed with myself that I have kind of that whole, I've come so far, and I'm so proud of myself. I think the two go hand in hand, being prepared with not only a food source and a way to provide for your family, but provide for the safety, because with disasters come a criminal element of some kind, generally.
Absolutely. And you look at all of the crime that's happening, especially after natural disasters, the people who are just opportunistic predators are unbelievable.
Rioters were crossing freeways and making their way more into neighborhoods. Wow. And again, that actually made for a good storyline. So when you see that happening, and then in that, actually what happens in that, when you have that sort of focus going on in one area of the city and the police department is tapped out,
right?
Opportunistic person on this side of town knows if someone calls 911, the response time will be that much more delayed. Right. So that's where it gets kind of dicey and kind of scary, is the response time. You can end up waiting an hour or two in a really bad situation. That's actually more, in some ways, what I was more afraid of in reality at the time.
Yeah.
Was I'm the only one that can save myself if something happens, because the police cannot make it here. Yeah.
And even the government says that you should have a certain amount of food and water in storage, and that you are the help until the help arrives. And I think most people think, and when they take my course, they always think in the back of their mind, if anything happens, the police department will be there to save them. And obviously, law enforcement is going to help you if they're right there, but how can they be right there for you all the time, right? So you are your own first responder. You have to know how to protect yourself. So what are your top 3 reasons that someone should read your book?
One is, I think in this whole genre of books, I'm hearing it more and more, and the feedback I'm getting, and I'm so thankful for it, is people are appreciating hearing the whole idea of prepping and being prepared from a female point of view. So many times in this genre, it's a male dominated genre, and it tends to be more tactical and militaristic. And this is more single mom pulling up her bootstraps and getting work done. And then the other side of it, honestly, is for kind of what we've been talking about, for that young woman, for that person out there who's broken. And because I've been there, we know what it's like. And going back to what you said earlier too, you're not alone. The statistics I read out there, 1 in 3 there have been assaulted, attacked in some way or another. Absolutely. And I want people to know, I want women to know, I want young women to know in particular, there are very, very simple steps to preventing that. And I so appreciate you guys, just situational awareness. It's so funny. And I've seen people on your social media joke about it, walking around with that angry woman face. I'm gonna say it nicely, that angry woman face. I know that looks awful, but I'll tell you what, when you walk around with that, people don't bother you. You don't get the little things that we get used to, those little looks and snide remarks and catcalls that men give us that
Yes.
can actually numb us and bring us to the point where it's okay to be touched and hurt and yanked and all of those things. So
Right.
learning it's okay to be a little bit nasty. I hate to say it, but it will save your life eventually. You don't need to be nice to these people.
I was such a target so many times. I mean, I've had a couple close calls where when I was older, I was actually with my husband at a rest area, and I was walking in with this guy, and it was during the time when there's a motorcycle rally not far from us, so there's a lot of transients, a lot of traffic. But I just felt this guy. I was walking in with him, and he just kept staring at me, and it was really creepy. And of course, I diverted my eyes. I felt really uncomfortable, and just like every other time, I put my eyes down, right? Because when you're uncomfortable
Mm-hmm.
as a woman, sometimes you just like put your eyes down to the ground. And so I went into the restroom, and I came out, and I saw him standing right next to the door with his hand in his pocket. And I was smart enough to know. I mean, I have pretty good intuition, but I was smart enough to know to run out the other door. And sure enough, I did. I ran out the other door, and he ran after me. He was running me down, and I was screaming, and my husband opened the car door, and he went the other way. All the research shows you have to have strong eye contact. You have to stare them down because they don't want to fight her. They just want to look for the easiest target. Is there anything else, Shelby,
Yes.
that you want to try to get out to the audience about your book or any other messages?
I would love to put, if you're listening to me and like, where do I get this? Where do I read this? I will say, if you want to go to my website, agreatstate.com, you can see it there. You can order it on Amazon. You can order it on Audible. It just came out on Audible, and book 2 is on its way out. And we've kind of teased it a little bit. And so to leave people with this, book 2 really is more and more about the aftermath. That's what's called, the aftermath, the collapse, truly. And I encourage women to read it because I will talk about more the assaultive nature that comes with a collapse. When you have very little law enforcement and there's an element of lawlessness going on, the first target we know historically is women and children. And it's sad. And that's my message in this book, is that learn from these stories, and they're based on true stories, so that you, when those moments come, you can defend yourself.
I thought your book was incredible, and I learned a tremendous amount. I mean, it really inspired me because, especially for a woman, so you had a full-time job, you were still able to learn all these skills and to be able to take care of yourself. And I think you really lay it out in the book really well, even for a woman that has to work full-time and have a child. So it really inspired me. I loved your book. So thank you so much. I hope our listeners read your book. It is well worth the read. You're going to learn a ton, whether it's for yourself or your daughter who's in high school or college. They'll really enjoy it. So thank you so much, Shelby. I had a great time with you today.
Thank you. Have a good day and take care of yourself.